Hello, welcome to this, what I think is a special webinar, because this is a briefing to business people about an exciting new opportunity that's now available to you. The Australian government has authorised the commencement of crowdsource funding, equity raising for businesses in Australia, and you are able to take advantage of this opportunity. So crowdsource funding is targeted at small proprietary companies, inventors, and has been legal for small proprietary companies to utilise this method of raising capital since the 19th of October 2018. I hope you're having a great day. My name's Peter Towers. I'm the Managing Director of ESS Small Business and ESS BIZTOOLS. And we have made it our purpose to become experts in all aspects of crowdsource funding, equity raising, to assist small and medium-sized operators to have a far better understanding of this new opportunity to raise capital. And we also supply a full range of products and services to assist accountants and business advisors to also have an intimate understanding of crowdsource funding equity raising so that they can assist their clients. Equity is now being raised by some small companies. I get people express surprise. They say, has this already started? It sure has, and capital is being raised. In fact, about 40 companies have already raised capital in Australia. Pardon me. Let's go through the list of some of the capital raisings that have already been concluded. A digital bank has raised 2.4 million. A company that's going to make premium socks and underwear has raised 363,000. A digital platform that matches moviegoers with empty seats, 294,000. And what I'd be suggesting that you do as a business operator watching this video is look at these different types of businesses and ask yourself the question, why couldn't my business be one of those? Because crowdsource funding equity raising is available for all types of businesses, not just new technology developers or some very fancy type of business. Let's continue. A gin manufacturer. A flat water bottle designed to fit into a bag has raised $383,000. A timekeeper of luxury brands with Australian-inspired crowns, 294,000. A global currency app and prepaid Visa card that you can use anywhere apparently, 248,000 raised. An investment in a gaming brand, $361,000. A leading soccer brand, Footballs Clothing, has raised $316,000. An Australian take on modern Japanese fusion has raised $184,000. And let's now look at some of the backgrounds or industries, business activities that some of the current companies that are listed on some of the intermediaries' websites. Craft beer manufacturing. There's a few of those types of companies raising capital at present. Surfboard design. Technology to supplement livestock. Health supplements. Manufacturers and marketers of Australian-made spirits. Travel solutions. Cloud-enabled student tutoring. Multi-venue medical services business that's going to operate in New South Wales and southern Queensland. Patented safety device seeking capital after first sale. An established company seeking funds to expand into new networks and markets. Now, that company is in the internet gaming industry, but that description could basically apply to any type of business in Australia. You're an established company, you're seeking funds because you want to expand your market. Is that you? If so, I hope you are taking notes and are going to follow through and have a good look at how crowdsourced funding might affect you. Incidentally, you'll be able to go to our website, www.esssmallbusiness.com.au, and download the PowerPoint slides from this webinar today so that you're fully informed. And we will also make available to you an executive summary, a one-page or thereabouts executive summary, so that you can read it and really decide whether this is for you. Another craft beer and wine manufacturer, Tomorrow's House Today, delivering the future of zero carbon housing. There's a few more. An immersive theme park combining education with fun, obviously targeted at children. Australian Premier Shave Club. Craft beer and wine, a network of professional funeral planners and celebrants. I think that's a pretty wide selection of business backgrounds. And based on that quick review that we've just done, I honestly believe that any type of business in Australia, as long as you are organised and you have a vision and a good management team, will be able to consider raising capital via crowdsourced funding. This is a tremendous opportunity for you because you don't have to offer security. You don't have to give personal guarantees. You do not have monthly repayments to make to anyone. There's no bank involved in crowdsourced funding. What you have to do, though, of course, is honestly service your shareholders, which could include another 100, 500,000 people who have invested some of their hard-earned cash into your business. That's the challenge. Now, if you're comfortable with that, I hope you're sitting now with a cup of coffee and watching this video, because I hope this is going to give you a whole new outlook on what you can do in your business. So let's start at the beginning. I hope I've whet your appetite by showing you the types of businesses that are out there having raised capital or trying to raise capital at present. And I think as 2019 gets underway, there will be literally thousands of companies trying to raise capital. Why don't you join this activity, this exciting journey? So first of all, let's go back to square one. What are the legal tests? Your group turnover. So if you're in a group of companies, it's the group turnover has to be under $25 million per annum. If you don't pass that, I'm very sorry. You will have to go and talk to a broker, a venture capitalist, about potentially an initial public offer to be listed as a public company. The group asset value also has to be under $25 million. It's quite coincidental. Those two figures are the same, I understand, from the government. And you cannot be listed on a stock exchange anywhere in the world. And you cannot be included in a financial market operated outside of Australia. Now, the subjective comments that I would make, the company can operate in any type of industry, and I hope I've proven that by those opening slides where we've looked at what's currently happening. Any type of industry. And there is no age specification. So you could be a brand new startup or a 95-year-old company and everything in between. Or even older than 95 years if you've got a company that's successfully traded for that period of time. So the second phase of the subjective tests that we've prepared is under the heading, is your company interested? Now, obviously, you need to be interested in this. No one's forcing you to think about this. The turnover, normally over $2 million, you may want to scale up your business. You've decided that you will scale up by taking from a $2 million turnover to a $4 to $5 million in the next, say, 3 years. People are out there doing that, trying to do that. We work with people who are trying to do that. But if you try to do that, you will find that you need extra cash for working capital because you'll have to buy in stock or inventory. You might have to build some new premises. You will definitely have an increase in the amount owing to you by debtors. That's where you're going to get that money from. Crowdsource funding could be one of the angles. You might be an early stage, high growth, disruptive companies. And if so, you probably are saying to me, get on and get this webinar finished because I'm raring to get out into the marketplace and get started. Well, I hope you are, but let's just take it a little bit easy. Please sit back down and we'll work our way through so you clearly understand all of the issues. You might want to expand your business, and obviously one of those companies that we just looked at before is deliberately expanding their business. You might want to acquire some other businesses, but you will need a vision for your business. Investors are not going to be interested in looking at your proposal, and you won't even get that far, to be honest, because the intermediaries, who we're going to talk about in a moment, won't be interested unless you have a vision for your business. You have to have a burning sensation in your stomach. You want to do something. You got the idea, you got the plan, you know how to do it. The missing ingredient is cash. And that's what this legislation has been designed to achieve. So do you require funding to implement any of these visions that you might have in your business? And is there a need for capital injection? Or you're going to be able to fund it on internal cash flow? Not many businesses in the category we're talking about will be able to do that, I don't think. Section B is looking at succession planning. Do you need a capital injection to facilitate the funding of a shareholder succession in your business? The founder may be ready to retire. Some of the family members may have come into the business. Children, grandchildren. But they haven't got enough money to buy out the founder. Well, crowdsource funding is a mechanism that you might want to consider to raise some capital, to use part of that to enable the retirement or part retirement of the founder, with money being injected back into the business. Or you may have a balance sheet need. You may have loans from banks that are secured on first mortgages of other people's properties. In other words, they're not secured on your own company's assets. And you have other financing loans. You might like to change that around a bit, repay those loans. You may have some Bank of Mum and Dad loans. Recently, the Financial Review had an article which indicated over 25% of loans to small and medium enterprises in Australia had been made by the parents or grandparents of the key people within the company. That was based on a report prepared by the Ombudsman for the Australian Government's Small Business Department, Kate Carnell. You might have loans from other family and friends or high credit card debts. All could be legitimate reasons to seek to raise some equity capital. But please let me put a caveat on all that. You need to have a vision. You still need to have a business. You won't be able to raise capital just to pay out the loans without being very emphatic on what you're going to do with that money. Paying out the loans is part of it, but the rest of it, what are you going to do with the rest? And are you going to create a dynamic business? So would the directors be interested in raising capital to pay these loans and credit card debts off? Or perhaps you're too old and too big for early stage innovation company. Now, you mightn't know much about ESSEC, But it was the cousin of crowdsourced funding initially. It was to go through Parliament together. Unfortunately, they got lost. They got separated. Early stage innovation company legislation was implemented around 18 months prior to crowdsourced funding because of toing and froing going on in Parliament. But if you've developed a new product, process, or service, you could have been eligible for early stage innovation company if capital raising, which had some taxation benefits for the investors, if you were only a young company. But if you're aged over 3 years of age and your expenditure in the previous 12 months was over $1 million, or your company's income was over $200,000, you're too old and too big for early stage innovation company classification. But you're still eligible for crowdsourced funding. So perhaps crowdsourced funding is what you should be looking at. Now let's look at how much capital you can raise. You can raise up to $5 million every 12 months. Can you recall those slides we looked at the beginning of this webinar? Did you see $5 million anywhere? I didn't. No one's raised $5 million yet. So you don't have to do it. I've had a couple of people ring me rather concerned, oh, we can't stack this up that we need to raise $5 million. Well, you don't need to raise $5 million. I think the biggest raise that we had in those slides at the beginning was $2.4 million by a digital bank. The average raise so far is around $400,000 to $500,000. Some of those companies I've noticed are now going back to the market a second time. So within a 12-month period, you can go back to the market probably 3 or 4 times when you look at the practicalities of getting everything organised. And some of them are. And some of the intermediaries are probably encouraging companies to do that. Let's go to the market first and raise $500,000. And the net use of those funds for the company is probably only going to be around $430,000 after all the fees, etc., are paid. And then you go ahead and do whatever you've said in your offer document that you're going to do with that money and create something new in your business. And then in 5 or 6 months' time, you might come back and say, well, we now would like to raise $1 million because we want to do such and such. We've done the first part. We've proved that works. We've got it under control. Let's move on. You can do that. The limit is $5 million every 12 months. And you know, it's only every 12 months. You can go off and do this again in 13 months' time and start all over again with another $5 million upper limit. This is the most exciting bit of legislation brought down for small and medium enterprises ever, I think, but most certainly in the last 35 years. The one before that was the introduction of Section 708 to the Companies Act, which enabled companies to be able to raise capital of up to $2 million per annum as a private company from a maximum of 20 investors. Now we've gone well and truly past that now, because you can have any number of investors in crowdsourced funding and you can raise up to $5 million. So you can still raise capital in combination with Section 708. That's beyond the scope of what I wanted to talk to you today about because it takes too long. But if you're interested, send me an email and I'll be happy to talk to you on how you could utilize Section 708 capital raising with crowdsourced funding. So let's have a look at the legislation because this is very important. The crowdsourced funding offer can only be made from the platform, in other words, the website of a crowdsourced funding intermediary. The Australian Security Investment Commission has currently appointed 7 intermediaries, as I told you at the beginning of the webinar. Ultimately, you can only deal with one of those people, but you can talk to the 7 of them, you can get proposals from them, you can look at how they go about marketing their business because they're all private enterprise businesses. They are all different. And some of them have got specialities in industries. So they must hold an Australian Financial Services licence and they're being given a further licence to provide the crowdsourced funding service. And they're now well organised. Obviously, people are raising capital. To raise capital, a document has to be prepared, which is called a crowdsourced funding offer document. Now, this is a rather detailed document. There are a number of questions that the legislation asks that the company has to answer. This document is the equivalent of a prospectus for a public company capital raising. All of the activity on the website is the intermediary's responsibility, and the intermediary must be the one that collects the share application and the payment for the shares. The key reason for that is the government insisted that the intermediary ensures that every potential investor has been given an investment warning, because this is high risk. So even if your favourite aunt wants to invest $100 in your company, you cannot take the $100 from her. You have to refer her to the appointed intermediary's website, where they will make sure your aunt has been briefed with the investment warning. And then she can hand over her $100 after she signed the share application form. So all offers must be closed within 3 months. So this doesn't linger on for a year. 3 months. It can be earlier, but I'm recommending to everyone that you would do it within 3 months. Now, if you fulfill the maximum amount that you have indicated in your documentation that's been approved by the intermediary, so if you've set a target of $500,000 and that's raised within 44 days, the intermediary then calls time on that application, on that process, and will then settle up with the company with the money. The main features of the crowdsourced funding bill are a retail investor can only invest a maximum of $10,000 per company in a 12-month period. Now, those companies we showed you before of who'd already raised some capital, the average capital raised from them is around $2,200. Some people are obviously put in $10,000, but a lot of other people only putting in $100. So the average is about $2,400. There is a unconditional cooling off period for retail investors of 5 business days after they have invested their money via the intermediary. Let's have a look at a forecast that one of the intermediaries has made, and it's on their website. This intermediary is probably the most experienced company that's been appointed an intermediary on what has happened in Australia over the last 10 years, primarily in what was called the Section 708 market. So they assisted investors to find companies that were seeking investment funds under Section 708. So they were private companies. So Enable Funding have looked at the Australian market, but they've also looked at the UK, USA, Canada, Europe, and New Zealand markets, because they've all had crowdsourced funding for 6 to 7 years. For some reason, Australia did nothing during that period. And this market has grown very strong in those countries. So Enable Funding forecasts that the capital raise for 2019 will be around $688 million in Australia. And that will blow out to just over $1 billion in 2020, and then $1.5 billion in 2021. They're big figures, especially if the average raise is only going to be found $500,000 or $600,000. That's 3,500 to 5,000 companies are going to participate in this capital raising. And the figures could be a lot higher. It does depend the standard of presentations that the companies are able to make, and obviously on the appetite of the investment community for this type of market. Based on what's been happening overseas, it should be good in Australia too. In the United Kingdom, one of the intermediaries in Australia has told me that crowdsourced funding equity raising as a total product now exceeds the total amount being raised by venture capital. Now, the venture capital market's well established. It's been going for years. especially in the UK. And yet in 7 years, crowdsourced funding capital raisings now exceeds the quantum of money. I look forward to that happening in Australia, because that will mean that a large number of small and medium enterprise companies are raising some money to help them implement their business visions. So why not invest in your knowledge and improve it so that you understand it? You are going to need assistance from accountants and advisors in this process, but shouldn't you know more about it? You know all about your business. You know about negotiating with your banks at this stage for loans and what they require. I suggest to you that you also need to understand crowdsourced funding, even if you haven't made up your mind yet, because this information that we have got available will help you make up your mind. We've developed a range of tools. We originally developed them for accountants and business advisors, and now we've developed a small and medium-sized business package, which will help explain how crowdsourced funding operates for company directors, management team members and shareholders, and anyone else that's interested for that matter, in how this new market opportunity works. And because we're in the new year, and I hope 2019 is a great year, I'd like to see $1 billion raised this year in this market, not the 588,000 that Enable Funding's forecasting. But we want to get you off to a great start, so we're offering a 40% discount on our individual product packages that I'm about to show you. And this discount applies until 31 January. So I look forward to hearing from you. And then we will be organising further activities during 2019 for those subscribers. We'll be sending you details and putting on some special webinars to make sure that you're understanding the process. And if your accountant or advisors don't know anything about crowdsourced funding, we'll be able to offer you consulting services, or you can refer your accountants and business advisors to us, and we'll introduce them to our programs. So to get you started, we have an introductory section of articles, which we're going to give to you free. All you need to do is just go onto our website and click on SME's Introduction to Crowdsourced Funding. Our website is www.esssmallbusiness.com.au, and you have them for free. Then we have an Understanding the Crowdsourced Funding Offer Document process. You need to understand that. Now, normal price $99. For the balance of January, it's only $60. Overview of the Crowdsourced Funding Offer Document, discounted to $75. Preparing the offer document. This is the equivalent to a prospectus that a public company has to issue. It's a very big role, so the documentation covers that. A special price to the end of January, $240. You need to know the intermediaries' responsibilities, duties, and very importantly, their powers if you're going to get into this market, because they have got a lot of influence they can make. We don't have to send any of this documentation to Australian Security Investment Commission. They have appointed intermediaries under the legislation to be their watchdogs, but also they are very much part of the process of promoting your company to their investors. And I don't think I mentioned before, each of these intermediaries have got somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. Sorry, 20 to 40,000 investors on their books that they are sending details of new listings to them. Let's continue on. We've got a summary of the investor protections and opportunities. Special price $60. And we have a summary of what happens after you've raised your capital. There are some processes, and that special price is $18. So and then we have a combined package. So if you want all of that, you can have it. It's normally $7.99. You can have it for $480 until the 31st of January. We look forward to you coming onto the ESS Small Business website to subscribe. If your accountants are interested, please ask them to go to www.essbiztools.com.au website. So you want to subscribe? What do you do now? You just go to www.esssmallbusiness.com.au/subscription. I'll leave that on the screen there for a moment. So if you want to write that down now, or tomorrow, you'll be able to go onto that website and download the PowerPoint slides from this webinar, and obviously that detail will be there. But I'm anticipating some of you might be very anxious to get started. So that address is there. And I suspect there's a typo there. It's ESSSMALL business.com, not 3 L's. So my apologies for that. We will correct that in the PowerPoint slides. So it's www.esssmallbusiness.com.au/subscription is where you go to subscribe. And you need to enter the code, and the special code we have is capitals ESSSBC40. I'll let you write that down too, please. ESSSBC40. So when you first go onto the site, it will show you the prices that the product is normally listed at. You need to insert that code to obtain the 40% discount, please. If you want to know more, can you go onto the website, esssmallbusiness.com.au/crowdsource funding, and then click on Learn More. And there's quite a bit of information available for you there, explaining in more detail than what we can do in a webinar as to how crowdsource funding operates. I'll just leave that there for a moment. So it's the web address, crowdsource funding, learn more. And if you require any further assistance, please contact us. My telephone number is 1-800-232-088, or send an email to peter@essbiztools.com.au. Oh, there's all the contact details there. So there's the telephone numbers, the email address, the web address for both ESS BizTools and ESS Small Business. So if you've got any questions, you might send them through to us. I have got a couple of questions that have been asked of us by people in other webinars that we've conducted. What happens at the end of the 90-day or lesser period? The intermediary will report back to the company directors and advise whether the minimum amount of money that's been specified in the agreement, and there is an agreement between the company and the intermediary, has been raised. And if it has, the intermediary will forward to the company details of the investors, their names and addresses, and will forward a transfer to the company's bank account that's been nominated in the agreement. And it will be the amount of capital raised less the agreed fee for the intermediary. And that's paid into the company's bank account. That's the end of the company's relationship with the intermediary. If you wish to raise more capital later that year or next year, you could go back and talk to the same intermediary, but the process starts all over again. What's the company got to do once you've received that list of new investors and the cash into your bank account? Well, you need to issue share certificates to those investors and enter those details into a special share register for crowdsource funding shareholders. and the company secretary needs to lodge a return of allotment of crowdsourced funding shares to Australian Security Investment Commission within 30 days of the notification that you have received from the intermediary. Under this process, you can have 3 share registers for your private company. You will have the share register that you've currently got, which has got a maximum of 50 shareholders. And that includes obviously your current shareholders and any additional shares which are issued not under a crowdsourced funding arrangement. So that could be if you've raised any capital under Section 708 of the Companies Act that I mentioned earlier, those shareholders are listed in the normal shareholders register. And there's a maximum number of shareholders you can have of 50. If you have any employees that you've issued shares to, you need a separate register for employee shareholding. And obviously, if you are accepting crowdsourced funding shareholders, you need to have a separate shareholder register for the crowdsourced funding shareholders. Another question that I've been asked a few times is, how many directors does a crowdsourced funding equity raising company need? Normally, a private company only needs 1 director, as you probably know. A crowdsourced funding company must have a minimum of 2 directors. But if you have an overseas-based person as a director, there must be a majority of directors resident in Australia. So that would mean, as I see it, that if you want to have 1 overseas director, you must have a total of 3 directors so that you've got the majority of directors resident in Australia. So I hope that information helps you. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to contact me, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Don't forget the copy of the PowerPoint slides that I've used today will be available on the www.esssmallbusiness.com.au website under crowdsourced funding. Tomorrow, please go there and download them. And if you've got any other questions, just send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Thank you for viewing this webinar. Good luck with your business in 2019. And I really hope that you will be able to give serious consideration to availing yourself of this great initiative that the Australian government has delivered to all small and medium-sized businesses in this country. Have a great day. Goodbye.